Hello everybody, A for Awesome here. Welcome back to another music review video. Today we're going to be talking about 5, or V, by Hollywood Undead. I'm joined here next to me by my sweet little kitty cat, Wally. And, yeah, so I recently recorded my full 32-minute video talking about Deuce's Invincible album and Deuce's Nightmare album. So this was the next step for that series of videos that I started like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now actually. And so yeah, we're gonna go, over as much backstory as we can and all that. And yeah. Hey guys, just giving a quick little thingy interruption. I don't know, I didn't put this in the script, but I decided that I figured this was probably a good place to put it. Was around this album cycle was it is weird because all the merch had their masks on it, but they, prior to this album, they, during the Swan Songs and prior era, they just never even revealed their identities. They tried to be, a secret. And then they all got their identities revealed by American Tragedy, but they still did some interviews in their masks. So it was music videos, interviews, and publicity shoots. They still wore the masks. Notes from the Underground came around, and they kind of stopped doing the interviews in the masks, but they still did a lot of publicity shoots, music videos, and, with the masks. Then Day of the Dead came around, and it started to be, and it was the same thing. Publicity shoots and music videos featured the masks. And then 5 came around, and it became, even the music videos have stopped featuring the masks as prominently, which is funny because this album is the one that featured the most masks out of any, because they made the 3 masks per member, right? So, the red, blue, and black masks. And so I just think it's really funny that they decided to make all these masks and then just barely use them, because most of the music videos feature the masks just like briefly showing up. In fact, some of them don't even feature the masks at all. I'm looking at you, Riot. So I just thought that that was a really weird footnote about this kind of era of the band. There was one other thing that I wanted to include, but I cannot for the life of me remember what it was. So... In June 2017, the Curls left Hollywood Undead on good terms. On July 19th of 2017, the song titled California Dreaming was leaked. The track was released officially on July 24th as the lead single off of their upcoming album 5. On August 25th, Whatever It Takes was uploaded to the band's official YouTube channel, followed by the song Renegade on September 29th. On October 10th, founding member DeCurls amicably parted ways with the group to pursue his own interests. The 4th single, We Own the Night, was released on October 13th. A new video for the song Black Cadillac, featuring Be Real, was released on December 2nd. Now, the actual details about DeCurls leaving are are just as mysterious as Deuce. However, it's been pretty obvious that they did leave on good terms, as they've kind of praised each other over the years and said good things. However, I think there is still some tension, perhaps. I don't know. It just seems odd that he left in October, yet there was 3 or 4 songs that the band released from the 5 era, with DeCurls still seeming to be a member, but he had no part in those recordings. The only time that you seem to hear him is in the background of We Own the Night. So it seems like there was a good point. There's some lyrics in some of the songs on this album, and there's some different things like the Be Real song saying 6 misfits instead of 5. It makes it pretty obvious. It seems like that was probably written while the Curls was in the band. He left, and then they added Be Real to the track so that it made sense. Instead of changing it to 5 misfits just because it didn't really fit the flow. But who knows? We could question this all day. I think realistically what may have happened was that DeCurls felt that he was no longer a useful member of the band, as at the very beginning, right, he did a lot of the screams, he did a lot of the playing the drums and percussion, but as like Shady Jeff says, DeCurls never was very good at percussions. That's why they got a second drummer. So at that point they had two ring drummers, and they were steering out of the sound that they had. So maybe DeCurls just didn't enjoy Day of the Dead and didn't want to be part of the band anymore. Who really knows? I do think it's ironic that Hollywood Undead would bring back a heavier sound after the Curls left. Like, I feel as though 5 kind of had a middle ground where like Renegade and California Dreaming and a couple others were decently heavy, but the rest weren't. And then New Empire actually brought the heaviestness up, and then New Empire Volume 2 brought it down, and then New Empire California Hotel California brought it up again. And so I just think it's interesting that they've actually maintained a relatively steady sound after he left. Whereas I think, and maybe that was the issue, right? I feel like Day of the Dead, a lot of the songs did sound very samey. They all kind of had that EDM sound, even the songs that didn't really need it. Like, Does Everybody in the World Have to Die? Did that really need to be a dubstep track? I think that maybe that was DeCurls' problem, is because he's never been a big EDM person. He said that himself in interviews. He was always more in tune with the rock and metal side of the band, not really the hip hop portion. And so maybe they just started to lean more into the hip hop, and he wasn't a fan of it. Who really knows what happened with them? But it's interesting that DeCurls hasn't really he's released one song since he left, and that was almost 10 years ago now, and he still has only released the one song and hasn't been very active on social media. So who really knows? Maybe he just didn't want to be part of the new music industry anymore. I have no idea. Hey, popping in once again, just something else that I've completely neglected to mention is the band released a comic book to promote the upcoming album, and I had a copy of the comic book for a very long time, but unfortunately I can't find it in my apartment. I know that it's in this apartment somewhere, but it's just gone. So I had my brother send me footage of his copy of the comic, showing it off and showing what it physically looks like. So I'm putting that footage into this video. I'm going to tag him, in the credits and all that. So yeah. Track 1, California Dreaming. A great rock song that has a great guitar riff, in my opinion. Whatever It Takes. Danny actually does a verse in this song, kind of. He, half shares it with J-Dog. It's kind of a weird vocal layering with the two of them, but I still think the song's decent. Yeah. Bad Moon. A good song, just maybe not a good Hollywood Undead song. I find it to be lacking any of the sound of their previous work. While I do admire the band always experimenting, this album in particular always stuck out to me like a sore thumb, and I don't really find myself revisiting it as much as the first 4 albums, or even New Empire. New Empire. Oh my gosh, that was bad. Ghost Beach. This is essentially Danny's version of This Love, This Hate, and I actually really enjoy it. I wish we got more songs featuring Danny solo, and hopefully he releases a solo album eventually. He has been releasing songs. I enjoy Treading Water and The Cure quite a bit. And I would really like to see him continue in that direction. I would also love a Loreen Drive reunion, if I'm being honest. Broken Record. By far my favorite song on the record, dealing with depression and living life with a mask on. Get it? Like Hollywood Undead. I've listened to this song on loop many times before, and I will absolutely do it again and again. Nobody's Watching. Way too poppy. Sounds like something Beyonce or Taylor Swift would write, but this message is still very positive, but it kind of just sounds like something you'd hear at like the end of like a Trolls movie, and that's just not why. Renegade. Dedicated Hollywood Undead fans will obviously listen to anything they release. However, like personally, I find myself listening through the entirety of Swan songs at least once a week, even to this day. However, I think it should be noted that if the band intends to make new fans with this record and entice people to listen again, I think putting a rock song, a hip hop song, 3 pop songs, and then another rock song is not a way to do it. Personally, what do I know, I guess, but I think if I was just discovering this band for the first time and I was like, oh, I'm gonna listen from front to back this newest album at the time that it was new, and I heard, oh, this is a pretty cool metal song, oh, this is a decent hip hop song, and then 3 pop songs, I'd tune out. I think I would leave. I think if I didn't know that this was one of my favorite bands already at this point, and I heard, I think I would tune out. I would call them, I would consider them posers for doing, the very first song. And I think that that's a big part of it. And I think that this song should have been way earlier on the album. I'm not a big fan of the music video, personally. I think it's a little, I don't really know. I wish it featured the band more, for sure. But that's just my opinion. And, maybe other people have a different opinion. But yeah, I do really enjoy this song. It's really grown on me over the years and definitely become one of my favorites. And I really wish that it had been placed earlier in the album, because I feel like it would have flowed better if it was like maybe maybe if it replaced like Bad Moon or Nobody's Watching. Maybe you swap those two around. I don't know. Black Cadillac. A fun fact, the artist Be Real, whom Hollywood Undead collabed with on this track, also collabed with Eminem's rap group D12 on the song American Psycho 2 on D12's album D12 World, which for those of you who don't know, D12 was Eminem's group, so Be Real collabed with D12 and Eminem. So they also collabed with Hollywood Undead, which also had Deuce in it. So in a way, you could realistically connect Deuce to Eminem through that, line, right? Deuce was in the group Hollywood Undead, and even though they left, he later, Hollywood Undead later collabed with Be Real of Cypress Hill. Be Real has previously collabed with D12. D12 had Eminem in it. Boom, right? But I just think that's an interesting way that a lot of music works, because there's like even more connections nowadays, right? Hollywood Undead did a song with Jelly Roll, and Jelly Roll did a song with Eminem. Boom, there you go. Or Deuce did a song with Ronnie Radke. Ronnie Radke did a song with Marilyn Manson. So therefore, Hollywood Undead had Deuce in it. Deuce collabed with Ronnie. Ronnie collabed with Manson. Boom, there's a connection from Hollywood Undead to Marilyn Manson. So I just think it's really interesting how many connections you can make in a spider web like that. And this it's just one of my favorite little hobbies, honestly. And a lot of the time, it's how I get ideas for artists to make videos about. is through, I'll listen to one of my favorite artists, they'll collab with a musician, I'll check that musician out, and then I'll decide, oh, I really like this artist, right? So it's just become one of my favorite things. Like another one, Hollywood Undead collabed with Ice Nine Kills, which is actually how I discovered Ice Nine Kills, was through Hollywood Undead, through their Heart of a Champion remix. And Ice Nine Kills has now collabed with a bunch of different artists. Some of them were shit, but some of them were decent. But I never would have went and seen Ice Nine Kills in concert in 2021 if Hollywood Undead didn't introduce me to them. Which means I never would have discovered Bad Omens at that concert, which means I never would have listened to Death of Peace of Mind, which is now one of my favorite albums of all time. So, like, it's just interesting, the little cosmic coincidences that kind of lead you to discovering new things. Not just in the music world, but all sorts of different things. This track is one of my favorite, is my second favorite on this album. And I love J-Dog's verse especially, and the reference to their older material, especially the reference to bitches, with the fuck, suck, dick, lick, man, we nasty line. I remember what I wanted to put in this video now. After this album released, there was actually a murder, and like hours before the guy committed the murder, he posted lyrics from Black Cadillac. So I wanted to just include that here and recognize that did happen. The next track, Pray, Put Him in the Dirt. This song seems to remind a lot of people of Korn, which, I mean, I guess if Korn was continued with their Path of Totality sound, maybe, and also added hip-hop. But, I mean, in my opinion, this song sounds more like a much better written and more subdued version of Does Everybody in the World Have to Fucking Die? Which, in my opinion, Does Everybody in the World Have to Fucking Die is the worst song that this band has ever created. Like, lowest of the low, below the kids, below Turn Off the Lights. I think the thing with me is, songs like Turn Off the Lights, which are some of the worst songs that the band has made, to me, I can listen to them because I know that those are meant to be stupid, right? Like, you're not meant to listen to a song with Jeffree Star and take it seriously. It's a stupid song. You're telling me the song with a chorus that says, "Girl, your boobies look so nice to me tonight," is supposed to be serious? No, it's not. It's supposed to make you laugh. It's supposed to make you cringe. It's a stupid song. So those ones can get a pass for me because I can see them for what they are, not what, and they're not trying to be something they're not. Whereas Does Everybody in the World Have to Fucking Die is very clearly trying to be a serious song about school shootings, but it just comes off really edgy, and I'm not a fan. And as for the kids, the only reason why I would maybe put the kids below Does Everybody in the World Have to Fucking Die is their use of a racial slur that didn't need to be used. But honestly, I just think it makes the song funny. I just think laughing at that is really funny. And maybe my sense of humor is broken, but I would put that above Does Everybody in the World Have to Fucking Die, personally. But this song is pretty decent in my opinion anyway, so. Next track is Cashed Out. This song is honestly one of the best party songs they've made, in my opinion. And I particularly really enjoy Charlie's verse at the end, or Charlie's, bridge, I guess you could call it. I wouldn't really call it a verse. Next track is Riot. This is going to be the most controversial opinion that I will share in this video. I think Riot is an overrated song. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it. It used to be one of my favorite party songs that the band had ever made. Back when it was a brand new song, I remember it was one of my favorites. And it's definitely one of the ones I've listened to the most by this band, but that's not necessarily a good thing. I know my wife really likes this song. In my opinion, though, I like Charlie's verse. I think Charlie does a really good verse. I don't really like the auto-tune on the pre-chorus and the bridge. I think it's too much auto-tune. Um, and I think Johnny's verse is it's good. Like it does get me kind of pumped up, but I do think that maybe there could have been better things. I would have honestly preferred if it was Funny Man on this song or even a J Dog verse because J Dog doesn't get a lot of party verses anymore. I would have liked to see something different. It feels like every Hollywood Undead song now is Charlie, Johnny, Danny, and maybe J Dog if we're lucky. And they just keep forgetting the homie Funny Man. But I do really like the reference to Swan Songs when Charlie says, "You done turned me into the Swan Songs, Charlie. Peeling out at a Harley at a high school party. Got a frame like Bane, call me young Tom Hardy. I'm the fucker to blame for the undead army." Ignore that. But anyway, I think it is a... I think that's a funny reference. I think it's very obvious that around this time they became a bit more comfortable with discussing their older material. From American Tragedy to Day of the Dead, it was seemed like they were extremely uncomfortable talking about their origins as a group, or like they did interviews, but they would change the story quite often, and it seemed like they were trying to hide the involvement of Deuce and Shady Jeff. They were like trying to cover up the existence of those two members and write them out of the band's history, which you just can't do. And so it seems like around this time they became a bit more comfortable making references, right? They made a reference to Bitches in Black Cadillac. They made a reference to Swan Songs in this song. And I just think in general they seem to be a bit more relaxed about that topic. They've kind of fluctuated on it in the years since this album. Sometimes they're willing to talk about it, sometimes they're not. As I mentioned in my previous video talking about Deuce, which is a big topic, it seems like at some point Hollywood Undead and Deuce kind of briefly made up for a little bit and that they were kind of on good terms. And then they stopped being on good terms again for whatever reason. It's been mentioned before, like Deuce would mention that he was cool with Hollywood Undead a couple times, and he seemed to kind of be moving on after Invincible. And then, if you notice, any songs that were new songs on the release of Invincible that weren't recorded in 2015, Deuce doesn't reference the group at all. He seems to have kind of moved on with his life. But then he seems to have, around like 2019, 2020, around the time of his first arrest, he seemed to have got back on the hate train, tweeting things like calling J-Dog homophobic slurs again. And so I think at some point they beefed again. When Deuce got arrested the second time and went to jail, I know Danny and J-Dog talked some shit about him on a podcast. But then in a recent podcast, Charlie and Johnny mentioned regretting how things went and that they had a desire to still be on good terms with him. So it's kind of strange. It seems like some band members have issues, some don't. It seems in particular that Johnny is the one who just wants to drop it, wants to be cool, doesn't want the beef. He didn't even participate in the Lights Out song, which had Danny, Funny. I think the Curls and Johnny were the only two that didn't participate in the Lights Out diss track toward Deuce, as neither of them seemed to want to be part of it. However, later, Deuce then beefed Johnny and the Curls. Johnny once again just backed out and didn't respond, didn't care, but the Curls did get involved. And so it really seems like Johnny's the only one who doesn't care. But there was only one diss ever thrown towards Charlie when Deuce left the band, and that was in Walk the Walk by Gadget in particular. And actually the specific line is, "To Charlie Scene, it's probably mean, but I ain't mad at the kid." So it seems like they don't have beef. It seems like Deuce never had a problem with Charlie. And in Shady Jeff's story about why he left the band, he mentions that Charlie and Deuce were actually really similar and personality-wise, and that they had a lot of same friend groups. So it does almost seem like Deuce and Charlie may have actually remained friends after everything, and that it was really only the rest of the band. But at the same time, Charlie had a whole verse in Lights Out where he straight up says, "Deuce, you coming out here has got me provoked." So he does seem to have beef. It's, like I said, it's a very confusing situation. It seems to have fluctuated quite a bit over time. I think Charlie and Johnny seem to have settled it. Danny just kind of got brought into it because he replaced Deuce in the band, didn't really have a problem doing that. He kind of just did the same thing that Matt Walsh did for 3 Days Grace, right? He just was the new guy. And then Deuce brought him up in Story of a Snitch, where he also dissed Johnny and J-Dog. And then it was, J-Dog in particular who wanted to create Lights Out, who had a big problem with Deuce, and still to this day seems to have beef with Deuce. But once again, Danny brought up on the podcast that he was in jail. Danny's actually the one that threw shade at first. So it's very, very confusing, and there's not really any good or bad guys in this situation. A lot of people pick sides. I'm not someone who picks sides in this situation. I think that Deuce very clearly has a lot of problems going on for him, whether it be a drug addiction, Lyme disease, mental illness, anything. And I think that the band could have handled the situation much better than they did. I think they should have been candid about things. They've tried to cover up and hide his group history with the group for far too long. I think the fact that it took until COVID-19 for them to finally start acknowledging his existence outside of shit-talking him is kind of fucked up, especially since, according to both J-Dog and Deuce, they were best friends for years before the band started, so I don't think it's right that they all just kind of cast him aside, and that they could have helped him much more. Even Shady Jeff himself has admitted that he was quick to write Deuce off and that he regrets it, and that he now, to this day, is attempting to try to patch things up with Deuce and help him. So I think that that's just kind of a shitty situation for everybody involved. Anyway, that was like a whole rant and a half about this song. My bad. But yeah, I think Ride's a decent song. We Own the Night. This song is great. It's a lot like How We Roll from Day of the Dead, with how it uses every band member kind of jumping in with each other. But as Johnny Three Tears and Johnny Three Tears, yes, as Johnny Three Tears and Charlie put it, I feel like the song We Own the Night sounds like no other band. It really is the essential Hollywood Undead song. And I completely agree. However, I do prefer the demo version. I think Funny Man's verse actually flows better in that version. And I especially love the chorus a lot more because of the screams and the fact that you can audibly hear the curls in the background there. Yeah. The next track is titled Bang Bang. And I don't know why, but for some reason this song just reminds me of a gun. I can't quite put my finger on it. No, in all seriousness, though, I think this might actually be my least favorite song on this entire album, which is saying a lot because there's songs like Nobody's Watching on here, where they're straight pop songs, no hip-hop, no rock, no nothing. And even though this is by far like the third heaviest song on the album, right, I still think that I just don't find it interesting. I don't know what it is about this song. It's just never been a song that's been in heavy rotation for me. It's been one that I've always kind of skipped when it's come on. I just can't. I've listened to it, probably 100 times because I've listened to every song by this group like 100 times, and I still can't figure out why it never clicked with me. I don't know. The next track is called Your Life, and this song really inspires me, and honestly, I think it's the best closer to any Hollywood Undead album, and I mean that. I loved Paradise Lost from Swan Songs. I think that's their most like epic closer. It's the one that really leaves you like, oh shit, that was dope. I thought that I didn't really care for Tendencies as an album closer on American Tragedy. I thought it would have been better as an opener, honestly. Notes from the Underground closer was okay. I can't even remember what it was. Oh, Outside. Yeah, Outside was pretty good. I'd say Outside was actually a decent closer. I liked... God, what was the last one on Day of the Dead? Save Me. Save Me was decent. I actually think that American Tragedy had the least compelling closer for the album, and I think that this one is one of my favorites, though, because I think they do really good for closing tracks, usually. As long as you don't listen to the deluxe version of Notes from the Underground. Having Delish as a closing track was just dumb. It's just a dumb closer. I'm sorry, it's stupid. But I think that when it comes down to it, I think the band has a pretty good history of closers. And what makes this one stand out among all of them is that, to me, this one is the most, like, leaves you feeling the most fulfilled, right? The end of Swan Song's Paradise Lost it was an epic, I don't know why I have the hiccups. It was an epic song that was really heavy, really, full of screams, and it leaves you feeling like you want more. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of Tendencies, and I much prefer the deluxe edition of the album because Tendencies just didn't do it for me. Like I said, if you're listening to the original version of Notes from the Underground, what are you doing? First off, that version is only about 11 songs when the deluxe edition is up to 18 songs. So, like, why? I think if you listen to, like, the complete version of Notes from the Underground with the New Day as the last song, that is a really good closer. And honestly, I would even put New Day above this song as a closer in that situation. However, that is not the closer of the default. That is the closer of the base album. Or that is the closer of the deluxe, not the closer of the base album. So going with Outside, once again, I think Outside's a really epic song, and I think it ends the album pretty well for Notes from the Underground, but I don't think it doesn't leave you wanting more the way Paradise Lost does, but it doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled the way this song does. It kind of just leaves you feeling empty inside. Which makes sense for that album, as that album was definitely the one with the most introspective songs like From the Ground, Lion, We Are, obviously Outside, like I said, and even on the deluxe version, like Medicine and New Day had a lot of were pretty introspective. I think Medicine's a bit more party-ish, I guess, but I think there's some introspectiveness to be found in the lyrics there. I still think it's a good song. Rain's another good introspective one. How could I have forgotten to mention that? I don't even understand how I forgot that. It's like my favorite song by the whole band. Like their whole discography. I think Rain is like my top 3. Save Me from Day of the Dead is a pretty decent closer, like I said, it felt like it felt epic like Paradise Lost, but also felt introspective like Outside. And that's probably my second or third favorite closer by this group. But Your Life really feels you leaving motivated, right? You listen to the whole album, you get all the different emotions. You end with this song that tells you that it's your life. You should do things the way you want to. And it really leaves you at the end being like, oh shit, I should do something. I don't know if it's just me. Like, I listen to the whole album, I get to Your Life, I finish that song, and I'm like, shit, I'm wasting my life. And then I get the motivation to, actually do something. I think this song is single-handedly to blame for my only good decisions I think I've ever made. But yeah, it's a great track. In an interview with Dead Press, while the band were at Reading Festival 2018, J-Dog and Danny confirmed that they intend to release a heavy song they've recorded called Bloody Nose. In the same interview, they also shared their plans to record and release their 6th album in early 2019. On October 30th, 2018, it was announced that Hollywood Undead would release a new EP, Psalms, like the Bible, on November 2nd, 2018, including 2 songs previously released earlier in 2018, Gotta Let Go and Another Level, as well as the previously announced Bloody Nose. Now, I got 2 pieces of info I want to share about this that are very interesting and personal to me. So around the time that I became a fan of Hollywood Undead was a little after the release of 5. It was... oh man. It was 2017. So I was about 12 years old. And I was a fan even before that, I will say that. Because around the release of Notes from the Underground, when We Are was a really big song, my stepdad listened to that song a lot in the car, and I really enjoyed it. And I actually remember burning on a CD, which I had written in Sharpie, Austin's Album of Awesomeness, or Austin's CD of Awesomeness, sorry, was what I called it. I had a bunch of weird songs. I remember I had I'm Sexy and I Know It and Gangnam Style on there, as well as We Are, and Narcissistic Cannibal by Korn. So my music taste has always been very interesting. So, and funny enough, Austin's album of awesomeness is what I would later call one of my own musical projects many, many years later. Um, so yeah, it's very interesting. And but anyway, I became a fan of Hollywood Undead more on my own, right? Like, so Take Me Home came out in 2015 when Day of the Dead came out. Once again, that was another song my stepdad really liked from that band, so I heard it many times and I ended up really enjoying it. So I guess it was just always my destiny to become a giant fan of Hollywood Undead. But 2017 rolls around and I started discovering them a bit more on my own through, I listened to We Are and Take Me Home on YouTube when I was on the computers at school and doing my own thing. And I eventually discovered a couple more songs. I remember discovering Dead Bite. I discovered Hear Me Now. And I also discovered Undead. But that one I had it was weird. So there was a UFC game that I had when I was like 6. So even before hearing We Are. And they played, I think it was just the instrumental of Undead, but I could be wrong. It might have been like a censored version, and there was just so many censored moments that you couldn't really hear the song most of the time. And so I kind of heard that song first, but like I didn't really remember it. It was just the instrumental, which funny enough, obviously that instrumental is Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne, which is even better because now Ozzy Osbourne, once again, it's those connections like I made with Be Real, right? Hollywood Undead made a synthesized version of the Crazy Train guitar riff, which made their song Undead, and then that connects them to Ozzy Osbourne through sampling, which is now my favorite artist of all time. So very, very interesting. Very, very awesome. Very interesting. And point being, I discovered a couple more songs, started to get really, really into the band, started to find out all the info, like how Deuce was the original singer, blah, blah, blah. My stepdad eventually showed me a couple songs by Deuce because I was like 12, so he's like, I don't think, he was basically like, don't tell your mom, here you go. I remember he showed me Nightmare, It's Alright, It's Okay, and I want to say there was one other one. It might have been Nobody Likes Me or something like that, but I really enjoyed them. And so I mean, like, first off, thanks for that, Tom. But second off, um, it was Five was the newest album at that time, so I had like 5 whole albums plus Desperate Measures, and then it was around that time that there was a shop on Etsy that was releasing um, fiberglass, like 3D printed, fucking almost perfectly accurate versions of the masks of the members of Hollywood Undead. And I think that they've made even more over the years, but at the time they only had the masks from, I think they had every version of the masks from 5, and I think they had 1 or 2 notes from the underground ones or something. I can't remember, but it was a relatively small store at the time, and it's in Russia. And I remember I paid like 300. I worked my ass off doing chores and stuff, but I paid like $350 plus shipping plus whatever the fuck to get a perfect replica of the black and gold version of J Dog's mask, because when I first discovered the band, J Dog was my favorite member. Actually, that's a lie. Charlie was always my favorite member, but the problem was they didn't have any Charlie masks. I think now they've started to make the homemade bandanas. I think they only have Swan Songs, Desperate Measures, and American Tragedy right now. Maybe more. But at the time, there weren't any options for a Charlie bandana. So I ended up getting and also, like, in my opinion, Charlie has the lamest mask of the group anyway. I love his vocals. I love him as a creator, as an artist. But I think his mask is the least interesting because it's just a bandana with a design on it. And I much prefer the actual masks. Like, J-Dog's is my personal favorite, then Danny as well. And then probably to Curls. Personally, anyway. But that's just the designs. So, yeah, I got the black and gold version of J-Dog. I waited like 9 months for it to come in the mail. And I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, or else I would totally show it off. I might get my brother to send me footage of it just to put in the video. But I remember buying that, and I also remember buying the Undead Origins comic when it came out, which I'm gonna You would have already heard it by now because I'm gonna insert it at the start of the video. But basically, Heavy Metal Magazine released a comic book called Undead Origins around the time of the promotion cycle for 5, which is why the Curls wasn't in the comic at all. And it's really weird. It's a really weird comic, and I'm probably gonna make like the whole beginning of this video is probably gonna be me going over that comic because it's really weird and very interesting because it talks about it claims to be Undead Origins, right? The origin of the band, but it like I think they kind of put too much into it by accident. So it doesn't feature the Curls at all, doesn't feature Shady Jeff at all, and doesn't feature Deuce at all because they obviously don't want to reference those people. They're still kind of trying to erase them. Plus, I don't think they have the rights to use the mask and the names and whatever. So instead of it being the actual origin of the band, it is Danny, Funny, J-Dog, Johnny, and Charlie all hanging out, and there's like a cult that runs LA, and I think it's pretty obvious now looking back, now that their ties to Scientology and such have all kind of been talked about. I think it's pretty obvious looking back that this comic book was them basically talking about their experiences with Scientology. I'd have to reread the comic again, and you'll hear my opinions on that. You already heard it at the start of the video. Like I said, I'm going to insert it. But I think the designs of the masks that they use are very clearly inspired by the 5 masks, but not actually the 5 masks. Like, instead of Funny Man's being black, blue, or red, it's white for some reason. I don't know if maybe the original version of the blue one was going to be silver, and maybe that's supposed to be the silver one. But, like, for example, J-Dog's is, like, blue and white. None of them actually look like they're... The only one that looks like the actual version from 5 is the Danny mask. I don't know why they're colored the way they are. I don't know why they look completely different. But yes, I remember that. I bought that comic, I bought the mask, and I bought a t-shirt with the comic design on it, which unfortunately an ex-girlfriend of mine either still owns or threw out, but she stole it, which pisses me off because I fucking loved that shirt. And a corn shirt. Another ex of mine stole one of my corn shirts too. I've had like 4 over the years. And like I've had like 3 different Fall of the Leader corn shirts, and every single one of them has been stolen. It pissed me off. But point being, I became like obsessed with this band. Like I would read the Hollywood Undead wikis all the time, just to see if there was any updates. I got like all into their personal lives. Hence why I started the writing for this documentary in the first place, all the way back in 2017. New Empire wasn't even out yet. Psalms wasn't even out yet. The original writing process for this documentary began in 2017. And it took me 3 years of just constant research, constant watching interviews, constant watching their concerts, and picking, like I said, this has been one of the most difficult things I've ever done for content-wise. And then, on top of all of that is just, yeah, so it's just an interesting comic book, and that book was released as a promotion for the album. So the Psalms EP, and in particular the releases of Another Level and Gotta Let Go, were my first experience having a new song by this band coming out. Because at the time, they already had 5 albums worth, plus the Desperate Measures box set, plus all the MySpace songs, obviously. So, in particular, my first experience with them releasing a song, I remember, was I think it was Sirius XM or something, did an exclusive play of Gotta Let Go or something. They aired it on the radio, and that was like, I literally, like, I never had a Sirius XM membership or anything, but I tracked down those leaks because I wanted to hear Another Level and Gotta Let Go, and I was a little underwhelmed. I'm to this day, I think Another Level is extremely underwhelming. But Gotta Let Go has grown on me a lot over the years as it's become more and more relatable the older I get. And now it's like in my top 10 songs by this group, and I really wish it made it onto an official album because a lot of fans who don't scroll down, right? Because on Spotify, for example, all the EPs are below all the albums. So if you're looking for Gotta Let Go, you have to scroll quite a bit. It has to be the type of song. It's the type of song you have to go looking for, and that sucks because it sucks, and it really impacted the popularity of the song, I feel. But anyway, but yes, I remember being very, very interested in checking those two songs out. And I think Gotta Let Go, even right away for me, kind of clicked that I liked it, but I didn't understand it right away. And then the Psalms EP came out, and the Underwhelmtion just immediately came back. And we'll go into that. But yes, Psalms was my first official release by this band that I actually got to check out. Starting with track 1, Bloody Nose. An awesome rock track about cocaine use and its effects. Honestly, I think that this song, since it was, announced to have been recorded during the 5 sessions, I think it should have replaced Bad Moon. I think it would have been a really great track to be, if you put Renegade as the 3rd track, and then replace the 4th track with this, I think that would have really flowed. The next track, Live Fast, Die Young, is an introspective song that reflects on the mortality of life, and in my opinion should have replaced Nobody's Watching, as they're both kind of the same thing but different. And I think that this song definitely matches the vibes of previous songs by this band more than Nobody's Watching does. The next track, Something to Believe, is a decent track, but in my opinion is too similar to Nobody's Watching, and honestly feels much more like, once again, another Beyonce or Taylor Swift style song, and I just can't get into it. Another Level is, once again, honestly one of my least favorite tracks by this band. Very generic and skippable. But I do think Johnny's verse does kind of redeem it. I would have maybe preferred a Funny Man or a Charlie verse on here, because we only have... there is a Funny Man verse at the start, yes. I would have preferred Charlie over J-Dog. I think J-Dog's verse at the end was mid. And the chorus in particular is just really annoying in my opinion. And Gotta Let Go, the last track on this in particular EP, is one of the few country genre songs that this band has actually made. I'm not a big fan of country. I listen to maybe a little Johnny Cash once in a while if I'm feeling super duper wanting to only listen to Johnny Cash, but that's dead ass maybe once every half a year. But this is one of the few songs this band has made in that genre. Gotta Let Go, I'll Be There, and maybe Bullet, but not really. It deals with the loss of a loved one. Specifically, it was written about the death of Charlie's father, and in my opinion, it is a masterpiece. At the time, I didn't really care for it, but I've kind of, it's grown on me many in the years. On January 19th of 2018, Johnny Three Tears got married to Asia, and since then they have 3 daughters together, Ava, Chloe, and Madeline. They actually had Ava together a long time ago, because Ava's relatively older now. They've been together for quite some time, but they didn't get married until 2018. You'll see the footage here, but during the tour for Day of the Dead, J-Dog actually proposed to his girlfriend Vanessa James, and on November 5th, 2016, they got married. However, in 2018, they were divorced, which is very, very unfortunate, and yeah. Alright, so just popping in real quick for a little update. I've been looking online to try to find a digital copy of Undead Origins. It seems as though there aren't any that I can find. Maybe I'm sure I could probably dig deeper than I have, realistically. And I can try to. But the thing is, I have a copy of this fucking comic. Like, it is in my belongings somewhere. However, for a brief period of time, I was not living in my apartment. I was staying somewhere else. And ever since coming back, I can't find my damn comic. And I've gone through all of my belongings numerous times in order to try to find it. So it seems to have been stolen or damaged or something. Which sucks because I can't find it online. Like, it's like practically lost media. It's not on any website. It isn't on any archives. Apparently the only place the band sells it anymore is at their shows at the merch table. Which I'm not postponing this entire video until Hollywood Undead comes to fucking Toronto again. That's not gonna happen. And so, and then spending like God knows how much money to go, especially since I have a daughter on the way, so that's not happening. So I'm gonna have to comb through all my shit eventually to find my copy of the damn book, because I know that I have it, and I've gone through my stuff numerous times. So I'm gonna check it one more time, but if I can't, I know my brother has a copy of the book. So I'm gonna maybe once again ask him to insert his footage, and I'll have to label at this point, because I've had the label insert. I'll probably have to insert his footage 2 or 3 times. I might actually have to label this collab video. I apparently forgot to record my opinion on the Whatever It Takes mixtape remix. It's bad, stinky, doo-doo, poo-poo pants. It's a shit song and I don't like it, and it sucks. Bye. Anyway, that's all for this time. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this pretty long and heavily autistic rant about a album and EP by my favorite band of all time. I hope that you guys, if you made it through, will stick around for the next part. I don't know when it'll be. I'm thinking probably March is when I'll end up posting the New Empire review, because I'm reviewing both albums in one. So that's like roughly the same amount of tracks, if not more, than this episode. I don't know if it'll be as long as this one. This one was going on almost an hour here. But this was obviously shorter than my Day of the Dead and Notes from the Underground reviews. So I guess I just have less to say about these next 3 albums, obviously. And I don't know why that is, but yeah, I guess I'll give you guys the heads up that in the next episode, which covers the New Empire albums, as I said, and basically all of the COVID era, because everything was shut down and the pandemic was around, they only ever hosted 2 live events, which were the Hollywood Undead House Party and Undead Unhinged. So you're not going to see a lot of... there's a good chance that I'll have to put some game footage into the... what's the word I'm looking for here? I'll have to put some game footage in the video, maybe some Squadra footage or something. But we'll see, because I've got both of those live events, and I've got a couple little interview clips that I can use as footage. But don't be alarmed if you go into the next episode and there is game footage instead of completely live footage. But yeah, I don't know when that'll be. Like I said, probably March or something. I've got a lot going on. But I do want to try to wrap this documentary up, since I did finish my Ozzy Osbourne documentary. I'm intending to do a video series about Attila. Actually, I don't think I'm doing it in a video series. I think I was going to publish it on my website. We'll see. But I was thinking about doing a video series on Attila in April. But we'll see if I end up doing that. And Ice 9 Kills. I've got Ice 9 Kills that I want to make videos about too. That one is definitely going to be a video series. I'm just not 100% sure if the Attila series will be video documentary type videos like these or just a community ranking post. Most likely it's just going to be the ranking post. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all on the next one. Oh, and thank you so much to my brother E for Epic. Go subscribe to his channel. Thank you for a lot of the footage in this video, actually.